By 1986, Metallica had already become one of the most exciting bands in heavy metal. Their first two albums had earned them a loyal following, but it was their third record, Master of Puppets, that truly changed everything. Released in March 1986, the album was praised for its incredible musicianship, complex songwriting, and relentless energy. Many critics and fans still consider it one of the greatest heavy metal albums ever made. For Metallica, it felt like the beginning of something much bigger. At the heart of that success was bassist Cliff Burton. Although he was often the quietest member of the band, his influence reached far beyond playing bass. Cliff had a deep understanding of music theory and was inspired by everything from classical composers to progressive rock. He encouraged his bandmates to experiment with longer song structures, richer harmonies, and more emotional melodies. Some of Metallica's most unforgettable musical moments, including the haunting instrumental Orion, carried Cliff's unmistakable creative touch. To James Hetfield, Lars Ulrich, and Kirk Hammett, Cliff wasn't just another band member. He was a musical guide whose ideas pushed everyone to become better musicians. His unique style helped define Metallica's identity during their most important early years. Following the success of Master of Puppets, Metallica set out on an ambitious European tour, performing to larger crowds than ever before. Every concert seemed to confirm that they were on the verge of becoming one of the biggest metal bands in the world. The future looked limitless. But none of them could have imagined that, in just a matter of days, everything they had built together would be changed forever. By late September 1986, Metallica was deep into the European leg of their Damage, Incorporated tour. Night after night, the band delivered explosive performances to growing crowds across the continent. The exhausting schedule had become routine. Perform a show, pack up, board the tour bus, and drive through the night to the next city. It was a demanding lifestyle, but one they embraced as their dream was finally becoming reality. On the evening of September 26, Metallica performed in Stockholm, Sweden. After the concert, the band climbed aboard their tour bus to begin the overnight journey to Copenhagen, Denmark, where their next show was scheduled. As they settled in for the long drive, one small moment would later become one of the most talked-about stories in rock history. The sleeping bunks on the bus weren't all the same. Some were considered more comfortable than others. According to the band's own recollections, Cliff Burton wanted Kirk Hammett's bunk, believing it offered a better night's sleep. To decide who would get it, the two drew cards. Cliff pulled the winning card and smiled, joking that he'd won the better bed. Kirk took Cliff's original bunk instead. At the time, it felt like nothing more than a harmless game between friends. In the early hours of September 27, as the band slept, disaster struck. Traveling along a dark highway near the small Swedish village of Dörrap, the tour bus suddenly lost control. The driver later claimed the vehicle had hit black ice, causing it to skid off the road. The bus veered violently, left the highway, and rolled onto its side. The crash happened in seconds. Inside the bus, the members were thrown from their bunks as luggage, instruments, and equipment flew through the air. In the confusion, no one immediately understood what had happened, but when the chaos settled, they realized something was terribly wrong. Cliff Burton had been thrown out of the bus during the rollover. What had started as another ordinary night on tour had suddenly become the darkest moment in Metallica's history. As the surviving members stumbled out of the wreckage, panic quickly turned into horror. Cliff Burton had been thrown from the bus during the rollover and was pinned beneath the vehicle. The band desperately tried to help, but the weight of the bus made it impossible to free him on their own. Within minutes, emergency responders arrived and began a rescue operation. A crane was brought in to lift the overturned bus. For a brief moment, there was still hope that Cliff might survive. But as the vehicle was being raised, tragedy struck once again. Reports from those at the scene described the bus shifting unexpectedly, causing it to fall back down. Cliff suffered catastrophic injuries, and despite every effort by rescue workers, he was pronounced dead at the scene. He was just 24 years old. The loss was almost impossible for the band to comprehend. James Hetfield later walked along the roadside in disbelief, searching the ground and wondering if the crash had really happened. Lars Ulrich was devastated, while Kirk Hammett struggled with the painful thought that he had originally been assigned the very bunk Cliff had slept in that night. A simple card draw now felt unbearably significant. News of Cliff Burton's death spread rapidly through the music world. Fans were stunned, and fellow musicians expressed their grief. To many, Cliff wasn't simply an exceptional bassist, he was one of the brightest creative minds in heavy metal. His musicianship, humility, and passion had earned him enormous respect far beyond Metallica's fanbase. Only 6 months earlier, Master of Puppets had announced Metallica's arrival as one of metal's greatest rising bands. Now, that momentum had been shattered by an unimaginable tragedy. Overnight, the future that had seemed so certain was filled with uncertainty. For Metallica, this wasn't just the loss of a bandmate. It was the loss of a brother, a friend, and the musician who had helped shape the band's soul. In the days following Cliff Burton's death, Metallica faced the hardest decision of their career. Should the band continue, or should it end with him? The grief was overwhelming. For a time, none of the remaining members knew if they could ever step on stage again. Cliff had been more than a bassist. He had been a close friend and one of the band's most important creative voices. After returning home, the members attended Cliff's funeral in California. His favorite instrumental piece, Orion, played during the service, a fitting tribute to a musician whose passion for music had inspired everyone around him. The ceremony marked the end of one chapter in Metallica's story, but it also forced the band to confront an uncertain future. As painful as it was, the members eventually came to believe that Cliff would not have wanted Metallica to stop. Determined to honor his memory, they made the difficult decision to carry on. The search for a new bassist began, with dozens of musicians auditioning for the role. In the end, Jason Newsted, formerly of Flotsam and Jetsam, was chosen to join the band. But replacing Cliff Burton was never truly possible. Jason stepped into one of the most difficult positions in rock music. He wasn't just filling the role of a bassist, he was following a musician many fans considered irreplaceable. While Jason brought energy, dedication, and technical skill, he also faced enormous pressure from both the public and, at times, within the band itself. Metallica returned to touring only weeks later, determined to move forward despite their loss. Yet behind every performance was a quiet reminder of the friend they had left behind. The band survived, but the tragedy of September 1986 would remain with them for the rest of their lives.